All right. Let's wait for this to cycle one more time, shall we? Pumpkin spice and everything nice. I love the fall, ladies and gentlemen. Suppose because I was born in it, it feels fresh like a new year, even though that's supposed to be January, right? Not for me. Never did feel that way. The fall always felt that way for me. Love Halloween. Love me some Christmas. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. And a little bit tardy today. It's been busy, a lot going on. This has been an interview that we've been trying to set up, but we're both just so busy. And I'm only like 3 days a week, at least for now. So I'm glad we got him today. We're gonna have Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports roll on by. And I think it'll be good when we do have him come in around 12:30 or so, because I want to spend the first half talking about something else. And of course, dealing with the polling industry. And it'll fit right in there perfectly. But I wanted to bring Mark on for a few reasons. And one of them is because he tracks every day. And if you've been watching, I've been telling you guys for years, and that's why I stress this with the public polling project. If you are going to poll a race, you cannot just, you can, but in my experience, it is much better to stay in the field as consistently as you can in order to keep a good feel or a good gauge of the state of the race. All right. And that doesn't matter if it's in a state or if it's national. It's unfortunate because there aren't many state level tracking polls anymore. Epic MRA, by the way, Mitchell Research. And then I believe Glenn Gariff will do it too in a state like Michigan. By the way, they all have Trump up in Michigan, which was relevant to the conversation we're going to have in a second. I don't know if they plan on doing it again this year. We tracked Pennsylvania both the last two presidential election cycles. Florida, we typically do or did, but we took it off the board in 2020 because we knew that Florida would not be really that close. All right. So it was, limited budget with the public polling project. It is publicly funded, which I'm going to have to reiterate here in a second. And you have to make choices with what you have to work with. So we decided that a couple of these states that we had polled, despite what the media polls were showing, Iowa, Ohio, Florida, were not going to be competitive. Not really. Anyway. All right. So with that in mind, I think what I want to start with today, and then we'll try to get to some Q&As later. I'm not trying, we will, or Laura will have my hide. I want to talk about how, and this is something that's going to lead perfectly into Mark, how pollsters are treated in this industry. Okay. And not only pollsters, but then even people who have been around pollsters for years and consultants for years. And their job is to basically talk with pollsters and try to convey what the data means, to the news consumer. All right. And there's people who have been doing this for a very long time. And I just, I plan to do this, but it just really couldn't have been more perfect time because there's some I'm going to play you a clip in a second. That was not initially intended to be in the show, but it's exactly what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to play another one, and I'm going to make you listen in between the lines to see what he's really saying. And then, of course, I don't know if you know, but what 538 has done to Mark Mitchell and Rasmussen, and then also what they have done now to Trafalgar. All right. So if you are not, and I think we have to start with this foundation. If you are not anti-Trump, and if you don't have a anti-Trump bias in your analysis and in your work, you will be deemed right-wing, Republican even. And those of you who know me and you've been watching for years, I can't stand the Republican Party. I don't even try to hide it. I can't stand them. The only time I've ever registered as a Republican was in a primary state where maybe I wanted to vote in the Republican primary and it was a closed primary election. I don't like either party. And I'm certainly not loyal to one or the other. And definitely, I am not for sale to either of them. But it doesn't matter because you could be right every election for 20 years in a row, 30 years in a row. You could be Gallup, miss one presidential election through your 50-year history, and then get Mitt Romney wrong, and they come at you with the knives because that's what they did to Gallup, and they scared Gallup out of the field. The Obama administration, because Gallup refused at that point to reduce the white vote share below 70%, they sicked all sorts of federal agencies on Gallup, and they threatened them with Justice Department civil rights investigations. And once you hear that, you know they're probably going to sick the IRS on you. So they scared the gold standard of presidential horse race polling out of the damn industry. The company who bears the name is the namesake, for crying out loud, of the man who started this all in its current form. Pew Research made a decision also to leave the horse race business. They seem to be polling more this year than they have in recent cycles. In case you had missed it, by the way, that just came out a couple of days ago, is tied at 48. All right, so remember this when you hear all these words like high quality and low quality polls, and polls that are, meant to cause a narrative and not. You could be right like Gallup for 50 years, get one race wrong, and you get talked about like this. You could be on their side where you're not anti-Trump. You're just trying to call the race fairly. You don't want to have an anti-Trump bias. You don't want to have a pro-Trump bias. It doesn't matter. They'll lump you in with people who may have a Trump bias. It simply doesn't matter. And in truth, I mean, it's like this in the world of journalism now, but it should be different in the world of polling. Like this should not have the same rules. Like you lost your credibility a long time ago, and now you're taking out the industry, my industry's credibility, because your toxic group. It's not even groupthink. It's hive mind, state of mind. Does not tolerate anyone who doesn't toe the line, think like them. And it doesn't even matter if you're more accurate. Like, let's cut this shit for a second. The Public Polling Project from 2020 is on Big Data Poll's website. There was an entire expose with my little picture and everything, reporting how much more accurate we were than 538, how much more accurate we were than the New York Times, how we were more transparent than all of them. It doesn't matter. We had a Trump +2 in North Carolina. The New York Times had a Biden +6. We had a Trump +4 in North Carolina. Actually, it was like 4 point something. In 2016, the New York Times had a Clinton +6. Somebody's right and somebody's wrong. It's not really up for debate. Like, this has nothing to do with your own worldview or your own ideology. A couple of years ago, I gave a speech at, it was really a summit, but I gave a speech about whether polling was reliable anymore. And I told people, which is a room full of people who still care what the New York Times thinks. I mean, this was like the speech where Laura was like, just go for it. Tell them what they need to hear. And I said, there's two problems. One is, of course, about methodology. And it's a boys' club, and it's a status quo kind of industry, and nobody wanted to evolve, especially not back then. We did things like panel polling and experimented with text to online, and boy, they weren't having any of it. We discussed the use of potential AI on a limited basis. They weren't having any of it. Call center, $25 to $40, a complete interview, live caller polling that consistently tracked significantly to the left of the actual vote total. And we would show this year after year after year after year. We literally worked with Aristotle and Dinata back then to do a dedupe or a match it, whatever you want to call it, a data append, to show people that look at this panel that Nate Silver called fake. Look at this panel. Here are the people from our panel. Number one, we can identify right off the top who actually voted and who didn't, and let's compare them to the other panels. The ones they accepted somehow, even though they weren't live call or interview. The Ipsos panel, the YouGov panel, which, by the way, now got too big for its own britches and has to dip into other marketplaces like ours. All of them, by every, not only important, but every metric used in this industry as an industry standard to measure the quality of a sample, by everyone, we blew them out of the water. It still didn't matter. Fast forward to 2018. Gillum +6, Gillum +8, Donnelly +7, blah, 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 blah. They get it wrong. They just move forward. That year, they used the House vote to trash Rasmussen, even though their state polls were generally more accurate, because they got the House vote closer, certainly, than they got the presidential national vote in 2016. But they wanted to use that to whitewash every bad result in every key state running, in a senatorial election or a gubernatorial election, which is pretty important considering a presidential election in this country is decided by individual elections in individual states. And then we add up a little something called the Electoral College, and whoever gets to 270 wins. So it's probably pretty damn important that you know how to poll the battleground states. Marist, the New York Times, USA Today. Mike DeWine didn't lead in any of them. None of them. Fox News, Claire McCaskill +3. Okay. Tennessee is a dead heat between Marsha Blackburn and Phil Bradenson. She squished him like a bug. Joe Donnelly is ahead of Mike Braun by 7 points. Okay, right. We had a Braun +3. We actually understated Braun a little bit, but he won, and he won comfortably. All of this goes on. Fast forward to 2020. Do we really have to go down this road? Biden +17 in Wisconsin. Biden +17. The polls I just mentioned that are Michigan native state pollsters overstated grossly Biden's lead in their state. It came within a little over 2 points. Now they have Trump up. Florida. Come on, man. Even some of the generally good guys, Emerson, who now, by the way, is getting lumped in with, he better be careful. You better be careful over there, Spence. You're getting real close to the conservative ghetto, brother. They're going to exile your ass, and you're going to end up over here in a Section 8 closet with me. This is how people are treated in this industry. So sure, there are methodological problems, but there are also ethical problems, and you just can't ignore it anymore. When a pollster allows their media client to frame the results in a way that your work does not support. For instance, like the poll somehow shows some stark reversal in the trend of the race after an event, but every damn interview you collected was before the actual event. And you say nothing, you have an ethical problem. Hell, the New York Times poll, for crying out loud, one of their favorite polls, Trump +1. He's mad about it. Go watch Nate Cohen's Twitter feed. The guy's pissed off. At least three news agencies, without their pollsters saying a damn word, have questioned the results of their own poll this year during this cycle when it, in fact, did not support the Democrat in any meaningful way. The New York Times just did it. NBC News did it. Steve, come on, bro. You know it. In your very first poll ever, NBC News poll that had Trump up over any Democratic candidate, not you, but your newsroom, okay, if you loosely even call it that, wrote an article claiming that you don't really believe the results of your own poll. And before that, ABC News, before they shit can Gary Langer, who is the longtime pollster for ABC News, wrote an article about how they just didn't believe this pro-Trump polling they got. They were perfectly fine with Gary's methodology when it delivered them a Biden plus 17 in the state of Wisconsin. But you come up with a Trump plus 6 in a national poll, and you're fired. Don't give me this shit. You're overseeing the data. Ipsos has your job. You may be looking at the data set, but what difference does it make? You don't collect the data anymore. That is not how you collected the data for the years and years and years that you conducted this poll. Now it's not even an apples to apples comparison between this election and any other election that you've ever polled for. It's a shitty online panel, one of the shittiest panels in the industry, and you're just what? Waiting it how you want? So what? You know, and I know that the collection is where it really all comes down. You monitoring your own interviewers and agents as they talk to voters. You putting that headpiece on. You going through and reading every single transcript from the text online or every single transcript from the peer-to-peer texting interview, however it was conducted. That's where the real meat and potatoes comes from, and you know it. You're not doing any of that anymore. You may be designing it. I don't even think you are, but you may be designing it, and Ipsos sends it back to you. You ever run any tests on the Ipsos panel? Or you just believed what they gave you? Not to pit anybody against each other or anything, but you should probably go to Cint and see what it really looks like. So if you're a pollster in this environment, there is no money. And I want you to understand this before we get to this. There is no money in fairly polling a race in American politics. Period. It doesn't matter if you come up with a right-leaning result, a left-leaning result. Everybody else pigs out at the trough when they give partisans, whether it's in media or in campaigns, the results that they want. Those of us who try to do this for the right reason and do it right get talked about like this. Here we go. Let's listen to this schmuck.
I do think that what happened in 2022 is that in the battleground states, in the Senate races, the Republicans flooded the zone with these polls that were usually 2, 3, 4 points more Republican than the independent polls that were being done, the independent media polls that were being done. And they ended up having the effect of pushing the polling averages to the right, to more Republican. And so,
okay, time out. First of all, 2 points is a sampling error. It's certainly a sampling error in all the polls he likes to cite. In fact, in 2016, instead of acknowledging how gross they did their job, they tried to make that case. If this isn't projection, I don't know what is. The Morning Consult poll that they're pushing right now, which is basically the only poll showing Harris with a bump, other than the Reuters poll, which is again done by Ipsos. So ABC and Reuters are the same poll that they're selling to you as a different poll. Understand that. Ditto with the YouGov sample set that they give to everybody, The Economist, Yahoo News, now some other clowns, and they all pretend like it's a different poll. It's not. It's the same marketplace. Fielding days are overlapping, and they're selling it to you as a different poll. The Economist poll is tied, right? But the other one that was just conducted using the YouGov sample is Harris +3 or some crap like that. You don't know what the difference is? One of the clients got it and weighted Republicans down to 27%. Independents are more of the sample than Republicans. Folks, that Laura and I were talking about this yesterday in prep for the show. I can't tell you the last time that happened. I'm not sure that ever did happen to us in the raw data. Maybe it did, but it was so long ago that I can't remember. That does not happen. Partisans are always more than the sample, and if they're not, you probably got yourself a problem. But if this isn't projection, I don't know what is. But listen to how he said. He basically is about to accuse, and you know who he's talking about, us, Trafalgar, insider advantage, right? And by the way, we didn't have some of the misses that some people did have in 22. We had one, Pennsylvania, that really gets under my skin, although I really do believe that was a likely voter issue. Had Oz driven those voters to the polls, he would have won, but he didn't, and he got outclassed on the ground by Fetterman and his campaign. Not Fetterman himself, but his campaign. And they banked votes, and Republicans still could not grasp the value of banking votes, and they fell behind. But the ingredients were all there for an Oz +1. It was all there. Who else? Emerson College? Emerson College had the Republican winning in the U.S. Senate race in Nevada by 5 points. What about all the other polls? The Sherry Beasley's +2 when Ted Budd ran away with that thing. What about the other polls? The St. Pete polls, which are always too Democratic, yet they push all the time. Rubio +2, DeSantis +8. They both won by 19 points. This is what I'm talking about. There could be huge misses like that. The Morning Consult poll that they're all talking about on MSNBC right now, their final generic ballot was Democrat +5. And like I got into and I showed you the other day, it was actually +6. We love to revise stuff after the fact so we don't look so bad. Republicans, of course, won the national popular vote by 3 points. What was Big Data poll? Republican +4. What was Rasmussen Reports? Republican +5. Even though Rasmussen and I were 1-2 points more Republican, who gave a more accurate characterization of the race, the House vote? The Democrat +5 from Morning Consult or ours? There's literally an article on Rasmussen right now hammering down every attack they have ever levied, comparing it to their own record. Like, how dare you? Listen to what he's about to say right now.
So Real Clear Politics, for example, which has a very simple way of producing averages.
This is an attack on Real Clear Politics. There has been a behind-the-scenes attack on Real Clear Politics for years now. An attempt to get advertisers not to advertise with them, an attempt to get media outlets not to talk about them and cover them. They are the gold standard of the aggregate average. It is not even close. If you go back and look at the last 4 rolling cycles, you will see that the RCP average is far more accurate than the 538 average, which engages in unskewing of the polls. It creates what they call a house bias for a pollster, a particular pollster, and then adjusts based on their house bias formula, which nobody's allowed to know, by the way. It's super secret, top secret shit. All right. And it produces less accurate aggregates than 538. Than RCP. But they've been going after them because RCP has been about down the middle as you could possibly get. If you want a place where every day you can go and you can look at the front page of the site and say, look, I want to know what the left's saying, I want to know what the right's saying, and I want to be able to kind of discern the truth from myself based on what they're saying, RCP's it. They're the only place left. Let's face it, a lot of independent media is too far to the right. They're acting as a countervailing force to corporate media, which is even the so-called conservative outlet, Fox, is fake. There's nobody conservative there. They're full of shit. It's an act. There's nothing conservative about them. The Murdochs just put their damn signature to whatever you want to call a letter of all these fortunes who endorse Kamala Harris. They want Harris to win. The personalities you see on TV are putting on an act. They're all like Allison Camrata. They pretend they grew up a Southern belle from the South and turned out that they just are rabid nutcase liberals. So independent media is acting as a countervailing force to them. RCP, which started this game. They started this game. They are the OGs of the polling average. They are right down the middle, and yet that doesn't matter. Being right down the middle will label you right wing. When I was testifying on the stand in the Kerry Lake trial, the attorney for Katie Hobbs referred to Real Clear Politics as the right-wing website. You have to be radical left for them to call you either credible or down the middle. And if you're not, you are mistreated.
Their final map of the race had Republicans winning 54 Senate seats.
Did you hear this guy bitch at all when Nate Silver's map had Texas blue and North Carolina blue and Florida blue and 90% chance or above for Hillary Clinton to win the 2016 election? Did you hear any of this? Negative. Because they don't give a shit when it's wrong and it helps Democrats, or they perceive it to help Democrats, because they are Democrats. We have got to come to grips that this is not a biased media, folks. This is a state-run fascist system. They are together, in cahoots, incestuous. They are the same thing. That's why we coined the term the Demediocratic Party. It is the same thing. And the same people who fund this channel you're watching right now, and MSNBC and NBC and ABC, the same people who run their ads during the commercials that you have to sit and listen to, which is usually a litany of side effects that could arise from Pfizer's latest wonder drug that's going to end up making your penis shrivel up, or anything else, God knows, under the planet. Your kid's retarded, all right? They're the same people who are funding the big campaign contributions for the politicians that they're shilling for. This is fascism. It's not bias, it's fascism. By the way, before Merriam-Webster changed their definition of fascism a couple of months ago, which you may or may not have noticed, they laid out that this has a political and economic definition. It is the state directing quasi-private corporations. They tell them what to do. They tell them where and when to put the labor. They tell them what that labor is producing. What is the product? That is exactly what is going on over here. And the state wins.
Based on the polling averages that had been gained by Republican polling operations. And the Republicans only won 49 seats. So we know that in 2022.
Cook Political Report projected that Democrats were going to pick up at least 15 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives in 2020. They did not. They lost seats. Almost an identical amount. This is not bias. It's fascism. So you know where they're going. He goes on to, because I got to bring Mark in here real soon, but he goes on to basically, not basically, he says Republicans funded it. I can't speak for anybody else, but I can tell you right now that when Rasmussen has a client and they fund a poll, Numbers USA has long time been Rasmussen's client, and they poll on immigration stuff, immigration issues. When that is the case, and that's who sponsored that poll, Rasmussen puts and discloses who sponsored that poll. Big Data Poll has never released a poll in its entire life cycle that was funded by another entity other than the company or crowdfunded now with the public polling project without disclosing it. If it was ever, and we don't poll that much for campaigns. I don't like it. I don't want to poll for campaigns. But if and when we have in the past or do in the future, believe me, that disclosure's there. So I don't know what he's talking about. Is Emerson College getting grants from like Make America Great Again PAC or something? I mean, is the New York Times, did they just take like some on the side from the Trump campaign? This is what they do. That's the truth. If these people are nothing, if they're not projectionists, that's what they are. Now, listen, I'm going to, before I bring on Mark, I'm going to play one more clip. I want you to listen to what Mark is saying here. Listen between the lines. Listen to what is honestly fear in his voice from saying what he believes to be very likely to be the truth. And he's constantly giving it caveats and constantly giving it qualifiers because he's starting to piss people off. Why? He's calling it straight. He's no longer on the circuit. He's no longer on Showtime on the circus, which, by the way, he was an OG of, pushing a bunch of left-wing talking points. You know what? That didn't work for Clinton in 2016. He'll even say it. It nearly defeated you in 2020. And let's face it, there's only one reason why it didn't. I mean, he should not feel that he has to apologize. And that's what he's doing. For simply telling his viewers the truth. All right, here we go. Listen between, like I said, listen between the lines. Then we'll bring on Mark.
As I spent my day reporting on what's going on in the race, particularly in the battleground states and the undecided voters in the presidential race, I talked to a lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans, some at the presidential level, some working on down-ballot races, some strategists, people familiar with polling data, with focus groups, and people with common sense about politics. And I'm certain that what I say tonight is going to cause some people, it's already started, to say, I'm an apologist for Trump, I'm being spun by Mar-a-Lago.
See? That's the first time. What the hell is that? What he's about to say is first of all, he doesn't even go far enough and say what he really wants to say. You can hear him holding it back. Maybe he will in the entire episode. I don't know. We will see. But let's cut the shit. She's down in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump is up in Pennsylvania. Is it a huge lead? No. But everybody knows Tony Fabrizio was right. Like, this shit is for you. This show is for you. And it is 100% a bullshit show. Oh, post-debate poll, morning consult, Harris +5. You mean like your generic ballot was Democrat +5? And it was an 8-point miss? She's down in Pennsylvania. The long-trusted native pollsters in Michigan have her down in Michigan. Matt Towery found the same exact result at Insider Advantage than the Glenn Gariff group did. Never found Trump ahead a day in their lives. Same exact result as Epic MRA. Never found Trump ahead a day in their life. Always had Hillary up. Always had Biden up. Trump carried Michigan in 2016, by the way. Let's cut the crap. Poll out of Minnesota today. Her lead's down to 3 or 4 points now. I think it's 4. The Survey USA poll, which is, let's face it, a little Democrat friendly. Her lead was cut in half. That poll was released almost 2 weeks ago. This one's a post-debate poll. It's down even more. If Minnesota is 4 points, what's Michigan? Do the math. They're usually separated by about 3 to 6 points. If he's up, and we're going to get a poll this weekend, we'll see what she does. I really wish And what it just came out, if that rumor is untrue, then because people are spreading it, I've heard it from 3 different people. I wish she just would have come out and said this is false. She did not. If he is, and by the way, Ann's poll had a dead even at this time in September of 2020. Ann Seltzer had Iowa dead even when we had Trump up by 8 points. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, she later dropped to +7 as the final. I submit to you that Iowa did not move 7 points in a month. I was right, and I was right all along. And if that poll is anywhere near Trump +7 or above, you could take the Marquette poll from Wisconsin and stick it you know where. Because, by the way, you're not going to find 0% crossover vote in any legitimate poll that anyone conducts. That is a response bias. Patrick Ruffini's been talking about this. Mark Harris has been talking about this. Hell, the liberal patriot is talking about it. It is not real. They know it, though.
I'm making things up. I'm ignoring the facts. And I'm just here to tell you, I'm only going to give you facts. And I'm going to give you theories based on facts, which may or may not be true.
Which may or may not be true. All right. You know what? Let's bring on Mark. I've kept him waiting too long. All right. Let's bring on Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. Mark, I'm so glad you joined. We've been trying to do this for a while. And yeah, I mean, between both of our schedules, it's not easy, folks. But
it's great to be back. Really happy to be here.
It is, and it really could not have been a moment too soon here, Mark. I mean, look, you heard me going on and on.
The really thing that escapes them is integrity. Like, when did integrity disappear? That's how you know people aren't lying to you. And I know it sounds trite, but there's no amount of like the AAPOR or polling standards or disclosure that can make up for a scumbag. Even if they gave you the data, they could spike data points. They could go in and I think what they do is they selectively cultivate data sources they like, and then they have something to hide behind. But it all comes down to, like, I disclose my sponsors, but at the end of the day, you're trusting that I do what I'm going to say I do.
That's so true. Yeah.
And, it's like they don't even have that component in their minds. It's like they got to rely on credentials or some type of authority or the stodginess of the mainstream organization that they're tied to. And folks aren't buying it anymore.
I mean, look, we wouldn't be popular if they were doing a good job that people trusted. You know what I mean? I mean, that really comes down to it. I've been attacked viciously for years. I've been banned from that shitty website, pardon my French. Now you guys got it. And amazingly, when I went through what they were asking you, I mean, there was so many points that they were making that it's like they never asked this of the Monmouth poll. They never would ask this of Patrick Murray, Mark Murray, any of them, because they're in the cool club, Mark, and we're not.
That's exactly it.
I started this off by saying, like, it doesn't matter if you lean to the right or not. If you simply if you don't have, this is the most simple way to put it, if you don't have an anti-Trump bias in your work and in your attitude, then you get wrapped up and put into this category. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They have to be anti-Trump in order to have credibility. Like, that's the way they view this.
They don't trust things they can't control. It's the control left. I'm not a Trump cheerleader. My goal is to just tell the truth.
Yeah.
But that's just what conservatives want right now. Like, that's the reason we have a conservative slant. That's why our audience is mostly conservatives, but also open-minded independents. They just want somebody who's not lying to them. Yeah. And I mean, immediately, in my opinion, 538 exposed themselves as being ideologues. They took over Nate's machine, and maybe he was, and maybe he wasn't an ideologue. Maybe he's gotten religion. I don't know. But I mean, for people who don't know, I don't know if you talked about the story, but they reached out to us like 3 weeks after Nate got fired.
Tell it.
And yeah. Okay. This goes back to, I think, spring of 2023. And I know, like, most people don't even know what 538 is. So we talk about it, and I think it goes over a lot of people's heads. Your audience obviously does, right? So they fired Nate. Don't know why. I have my opinions. And they hired this new guy, G. Elliott Morris, who I don't know much about, but I'm pretty sure he's a rabid leftist.
He is.
And yeah, okay.
He's worse than Nate. He's worse than Nate. He is.
Yeah. I think Nate tries. I think he's just, well, whatever. So within 4 weeks, we got a really polite email from some underling, and I typed out a full response, and it was very basic questions about our methodology. And we've pretty much talked about it and answered it, many times, almost all of it publicly. And there were just a few of them, in my opinion, that went too far. And I got this feeling like, they're probably not asking other people this.
No.
And we're really one of the only independent people in the aggregate. So I was just like, nah, I deleted the email. Then I got another one like 6 weeks later, same guy, same email, ignored it. I'm like, well, if they really want to know, somebody more important will email me.
Right.
And then this G. Elliott Morris guy,
turn for crying out loud.
Yeah, I don't know the guy's name or whatever, but my name is Elliott Morris, and I'm the editorial director of data analytics, and blah, blah, blah. I'm emailing you because final notice that 538 is formally banning Rasmussen Reports. It gives us like a 36-hour ultimatum to respond to the list of questions. But what was fascinating is the list changed in this email. And it was, first, Rasmussen must explain the nature of its relationship with several right-leaning blogs and online media outlets. So not methodology, it's like who we talk to, like just who we talk to, which
who the
have
hell
given
do you
us.
think you are? Who the hell do you think you are? Let me just interrupt you for a second.
No.
Who the hell do you think you are? The entire big media complex is left wing. Do they make Gary Langer explain his relationship with George Stephanopoulos, who, by the way, worked for the Clintons? Come on, man. Richard Hart polled for Hillary Clinton. He's the friggin' pollster for NBC News. And that's, by the way, the Wall Street Journal broke their relationship off, their longstanding partnership that they had together, because after 2016, it was like, you know what, maybe we do need to look at some of this stuff. But nobody ever questions that. Give me a break. Public Opinion Strategies is Ron DeSantis' pollster. It's a campaign pollster, man. And nobody asked the Wall Street Journal what the hell they're doing hiring these people. Come on, dude. It's just, who the hell do you think you are?
I mean, but it's so transparent. And it's like he's being fine. Like he's a direct, whatever. He's being an enforcer for the club, but everybody knows the club isn't what it used to be. It doesn't have the same power, and it's kind of a laughing stock right now. And I think that's the big thing everybody's talking about the debate is how much ABC clowned itself. ABC owns 538. But it's like
and by the way, is run by a personal friend of Kamala Harris, who introduced Kamala Harris to her husband. You gotta be kidding me, Mark.
Yeah. So tell me again how. Okay. So including Fox News, which we haven't talked to in 10 years, but that's your far right-leaning blogs and online media outlets. But then Steve Bannon, and I'll be honest, we went on Steve Bannon, and I don't endorse everything on Steve's show. I think Steve's a great human being, but I'll go on CNN. I'll go on whatever show he has me to talk about public opinion. The problem is we've been blacklisted by people who are afraid of the truth.
Yep.
Where I regularly appear with a promise of coverage in return for public field work. So now, 2 sentences into this paragraph, he's accusing us of selling out and doing work for people to get coverage.
I mean, as if you could keep the business afloat doing that.
Yeah,
as if the lights are going to stay on for more than 2 weeks. If you
even,
it's
expensive, man.
Which they know.
Nobody pays us. The conservatives don't even trust polling anymore. But then they. So they can't accuse us for working with groups that we're not disclosing. They're accusing us of lying, essentially.
Yeah.
And that I might have a close personal relationship with figures that might cloud my judgment in the operation of a public poll. I mean, it just goes on and on. And then it gets into some of the stuff we polled on, which is the topics. They don't like the topics. They don't like that we polled on vaccines and election fraud. Yeah. And that, to me, is the control left. There's things you can't talk about, and it hurts people's feelings. and it's that club. They don't like narratives, and they can't control it anymore. But the problem is now 60% of people think the media is the enemy of the people, and they are unaware of it and getting worse every day.
And one of them was Arizona, the poll that you did in Arizona, which was the recalled vote poll, right?
Yeah.
So now when Tony Fabrizio comes out and says, whoa, something's wrong with this FAU poll, Trump's support in 2020 is only 36% in this sample, right? Or the New York Times poll. Hey, look, this poll is like Biden plus 10 in Michigan. Biden didn't win Michigan by 10 points. They called him crazy. That's poll debunking, blah, 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 blah. But that is exactly what they asked of you in that damn email. They bring up Arizona. It's a recalled vote, Mark. So it's like the standards are not the same.
I think it was just the very idea that I might imply that something surreptitious might have happened in Maricopa in 2022.
Which it did.
Yeah, right. But the objective truth doesn't matter anymore because there's no integrity, right? That's where we're at.
Right.
Two different realities.
So basically you responded,
no, I didn't respond.
Oh, you didn't?
I went on Steve Bannon 12 hours later and called him far left lunatic. Yeah.
It's worth noting too that their first attempt to ban you was publicly denounced by Nate Silver. And they
He defended us.
Publicly denounced. He defended you because he was like, look, here's the bottom line. I want the model to be accurate. And all you should ever care about, not all, but what should matter to you the most is whether or not they do a good job. And you're consistently up there. You're consistently up there in his own rankings. You were up there in 2016 and 2020. So
here's the argument that blows my mind, though. It's not even about our accuracy, right? Like, just assume for a second you're a left-wing, low information person, and you've heard Rasmussen bad. And maybe you don't trust our numbers. According to these people, they're taking data and adjusting it for biases. So they should correct for that. And we're really prolific. We do a lot. We've got like 11,000 data points on Trump versus Harris. Like, we're putting out more numbers than like literally anybody. Cross them off the list because we don't want data. Like, that's what it comes down to. So yeah, I mean, it's transparent, but even like on the face of it, the Real Clear Politics aggregate's like 1.5 Harris right now. I don't know what 538 is. It's probably like 4, right? 3.5, 4 right now.
They unskew the polls. They unskew the polls for the.
They unskew the polls by skewing them farther left.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, they said we had like a 7-point Republican bias. I've never missed a poll by 7 points in my entire career. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Where this comes from.
I did in 2022 when I retroactively polled Maricopa County.
Oh, right. Okay. Because you saying that, and I'm thinking, I don't think you did. Like, none of any of the misses that are like notable.
Strange going on in Arizona.
Yeah. None of the misses, because everyone's going to have them. And the only question is whether or not, in my mind, because it's just how statistics works, you should have misses in both directions. Like, if you bear with me for a second, I didn't expect to do this, but I'm going to. I'm going to pull up the map from the 2020 election, public polling project for 2020. All right. And this is the problem, and I'll come back to you, Mark Halpern. I wanted to play the last of that for you and get your reaction.
Oh, cool.
But this is how polling is supposed to work and how there's not like a methodological or ethical issue. All right, so let's take Arizona. Like we polled Arizona up. That's the actual image. I got to get rid of that. All right, so we had Trump up by 2.7 in Arizona. He wound up losing Arizona. So we overstated Trump by not quite 3 points, 2.5 points.
You were probably right.
Honestly, let's get real. But let's look over at Minnesota now. We had it Biden plus 10. And if you look at the crosstab, it's like exactly Biden plus 10. Worth noting, in the poll we did in Minnesota before this one, 2 weeks prior, it was Biden plus 13. So this represented a bit of a tightening, but still, nonetheless, Biden didn't win Minnesota by 10 points. He won Minnesota by 7 points. So here we overstated Biden by 3 points. Okay, so you're going back and forth here a little bit. That is not the case with any of their so-called great pollsters. They're so-called high quality, so-called A+, right? They're always missing in the same direction. And folks, there's a little bit of a rule of thumb. 19 out of 20 times, you're supposed to have an outlier. They never have outliers. Where were the Trump plus 20s in Ohio? Because if you were going to add the same size of miss that some of these polls had favoring Biden to Trump, for instance, if there were misses on both sides, statistically impossible. Not that right. If you're doing this with a sound methodology, it is statistically impossible for you not to do that. And yet they come nowhere.
This is something a lot of people don't understand, like not being in our shoes, is that there are lying scumbags, 100%. There are a list of, as long as your arm, of different tricks they can use, and they can selectively pick which ones to do when, and nobody will ever know. Although some of it you can pick up in the crosstabs. But then there are all these like innocent little chances to inject bias that all add up, in my opinion. And you really need the integrity to have that feedback loop and say, well, what did we miss? Can I do something better? Because even just like the idea where, okay, I polled Ohio and I got a Trump plus 20, but deep in my reptilian brain, I don't want a Trump plus 20. So maybe I reprocess that poll, but not a poll that has a Biden outlier. And even that little thing there probably adds, a half a point or whatever of Democrat slant to everything in the industry, because there are not a lot of independent pollsters or even conservative pollsters like out there getting picked up in aggregates. Like scratch us off the list for 538. And I mean, even like it looks like Trafalgar's probably weighted down to like 0.0001.
Yeah, did you see what they did to them today? Did you see what they did to them? Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I tweeted, I'm like, you should leave like us. Like it's what the cool kids are doing, right?
I mean, the funny thing is, again, ABC News will not be penalized at all for the 17-point miss in the state of Wisconsin. They won't be penalized for that at all. I know, and I just want to say this, I know, that you kind of anguish over the data like I do, like you're constantly looking at it and trying to guard against any, honest and innocent things that can happen and come up. I do it too. Laura will tell you, I'm like constantly staring at this thing, making sure that something didn't go awry. Did I miss anything? I want to make sure that I'm guarding against my own, because sometimes I look and I get results that I just don't believe either. But if it is what it is, and we apply the methodology the same way, then I can feel good about it at the end of the day, right? And that's what it comes down to. But there's a lot of people very clearly, Mark, who don't do that. So I can pick up on subtle little biases that are in. Look, I'm going to do the New York Times right now. Stupid thing, stupid little thing, but it tells you the state of the mind of the pollster and the person who's creating the documents that are then consumed publicly. In 2020, all right. Well, first of all, Biden versus Trump, right? I'm noticing that Biden is always at the top of the crosstabs. And I'm like, that's fine, whatever. But even when he's down, he's at the top of the crosstab where the order that the pollster puts them. Okay. And I'm thinking, what's their system here? Is the leader not at the top all the time like many other pollsters do it? You're all taught and trained a little bit different, but maybe it's incumbency. Maybe that's what's going on.
That's why you.
That's really the only two viable ways to do it. You're either consistent and the leader's always on top, or if there's an incumbent in the race, the incumbent's on top. Well, I went back and I looked, and guess what? Donald Trump was never listed first in the New York Times poll in 2020. Right. So
just alphabet. I guess they're using alphabet. Whatever.
And then now Harris, even when she's down, she's at the top.
H is before T.
It tells you, though, the state of mind of the pollster. You catch that. Like, listen.
Well, and it's the challenge for us, too, is because I have to make these decisions, and they're all little ones. And I find myself over and over again, the tendency, and again, I want people to trust our numbers, and I am trying to be accurate, but the tendency is for me to err on the side of being more left. It just is. And I don't always do it, but I feel myself being pulled that way. It's like,
I think that's the industry doing that to us. I do.
Yeah, yes. Oh, no, 100% is, because we're going to get pilloried. I think, our states were 6 points on average, 2 left in 2020. And when I went back and did swing state polling this time, I only shifted it about 4 points right. So again, I'm showing statistical ties in August in swing states. Might be right of that. And maybe, one cycle doesn't always make things right. But, and the same thing, if I had to pick right now, we use incumbency, but if I had to pick just one name to put on the top, I would absolutely put Biden Harris and not Trump.
Yeah. Because
And-
because they are the incumbent, and people will expect that you do that. Because if they see Trump at the top of the crosstab every time, they're gonna think, nobody will ever accuse the New York Times of having some kind of tiny influence peddled into the result, but they sure as hell will accuse you or I of it. So you have, as from our point of view, just so you folks understand out there, we're going through it, making sure I'm not opening myself up here, right? That's what it's come to, and that's kind of sad, because I was trained to always put the leader on top. That's what that was. The leaderboard is what's important. I do kind of like the incumbency thing because it feels like it takes that out completely. However, there may not be an incumbent in the race. So then what do? You go with the leader, I guess, right? But you're trying to be consistent.
Come down to semantics. According to our own polling, Harris isn't incumbent. So,
right.
Yeah, put her on top. Yeah.
Let's get into what you're seeing here, because graphic is not done. But I asked, and you and I talked about this, so you know this, but I asked, there's 200 and several people that, and I can go back and get the exact number in the poll that we released last week, who said they were undecided. And we asked them if they were going to watch the debate. And which represented like 7%, of the sample. But
okay.
We asked them, if you're undecided with the presidential race, will you watch the debate? Now, this isn't true, and I know this isn't true, but 88% told us, oh, yes, I'm going to watch it. People are sometimes full of it. They don't, and they'll tell you they know things, folks, when they really don't know it, because they don't want to come across as like they don't know these things. So they're funny like that. So, but it just comes with the territory. But in any event, when they said they were undecided and they were going to watch the debate, we asked them if we could recontact them after the day after, and we'll ask you a couple of questions, see what you thought, right? So far, out of the couple hundred, because it was only 200 and change who said they were undecided, we got about 79, I think, back, something like that. Almost, it may be over 80 now, but it was trickling in. I mean, people did. I'll tell you what happened. 88% didn't watch the debate, brother.
Yeah,
that's
what
happened. Yeah. So they're not answering the survey.
That's still a great hit rate.
Yeah, I really was. I was I was really surprised. And how many of them might have actually just seen memes the next day? So that's why we always want to wait. These snap polls that are like at 11 o'clock at night. Give me a break, dude. It's such garbage. But we always wait till the next day and the the subsequent days. I'll tell you, I'm curious to see what you're seeing in the field, being that you're really one of the few who still does it daily. Because I'll tell you right now, I thought this was not a good debate for Trump. I thought she did the more polished job. I didn't think he should have even debated her. People know my views on that. He should have just called her a usurper and illegitimate. I already debated the legitimate Democratic nominee. She usurped him. And that's what I would have said. I'm defending the 15 million people who voted for the legitimate nominee, not the usurper. And I'm going to do it my guns. Yeah, that's what I would have done, because he in our data, he's in control. All right. He's in control, and people are going to vote with the issues that we're hearing about. This reminds me a lot of 2016, where there's this vote. They prefer Trump on so many of these things, but the vote totals don't seem to match that. But still, nevertheless, in the 3 ballots we tested, Trump let in 2, she let in 1, different versions of whether there are third parties, whether there's a generic someone else or just head to head. And then with these people, this broke 2-1 for him. With those who were undecided and then said, okay, with the debate, I'm going to make a decision. It broke 2-1. And that was shocking to me because, I guess I had like the DC pundit kind of like way of thinking. And I missed something, I think, which is that this debate was about Trump. She made it about Trump. And everyone knows all they need to know about Donald Trump. What they wanted to know was something about Kamala Harris. What was she going to do to make their lives better? How was she going to be different than Biden? Because their life sucks right now, right? Like, I feel like she didn't land that mark, and that hurt her. I'm curious what you're seeing, in the daily ups and downs of this thing.
Listen, I put a lot of thought into this debate and how important it would be and whether it would move the numbers. But if you think back, we had a president got shot.
Yeah.
Had an incredible RNC, then the switcheroo, then the DNC. Like, there's so many unprecedented things that have happened this cycle, and they really haven't moved the numbers that much.
Right.
And even, going from Biden to Harris really only shifted the whole thing about 3 points left. And then the other probably point or two we saw leftward in our polling was probably August and probably all the DNC media garbage. But even the first debate didn't have the expected impact in our numbers. Actually, what was crazy is that independents, when measuring job approval, the job approval of Biden independents shot up quite a bit when they got a guilty verdict on Trump, as did Democrats. But what happened all of a sudden after the debate is the independents went back to where they were. And then the Democrats stayed elevated. And, you can call it it probably is response bias, but all of a sudden it felt like Democrats woke up and said, oh my God, Trump might win this. Yep. And that narrowed the race, even though everywhere else in the industry, it kind of widened. Like, it's almost like they got permission to pull Biden poorly. And going into this, So going into this, I thought they were going to be able to extend the DNC euphoria all the way to the debate. And what was crazy, in my opinion, was that Nate Silver and the New York Times came out that weekend with Trump winning in a way that, in my opinion, made the only upside for her is if she came out with a massive, massive win. And listen, everything's different. You see Nate Cohn referring back to things that happened in the 2004 election. We're so totally different. Republicans aren't looking at Trump and saying, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll pick the next Romney they put up. They're not doing that, right?
No.
So, I think it makes sense that we don't see a lot of movement. And I haven't. If anything, it's gone a little bit towards Trump, but it's only been, 900 responses we've gotten back, right? But the big one is, and I think you've been talking about it too, is that there's new forms of consensus reaching mechanisms in our country.
Yeah.
And that is new. Our ability to form consensus is being jerked all over the place. Look at all the consensus that formed in 2020 around COVID.
Yeah.
But now it's like they destroyed the media credibility. They've destroyed trust in institutions. Trump's going viral among young people. And when I looked at everything post-debate, it's well, nobody agrees on anything, right? Well, then nobody won, right? That's it. And to me, the biggest data point, we actually just came back in a poll, and it's just for everybody following, we've done our daily releases, and it got down to Trump 1-ish. And then Trump was hovering around an average of 2 points going into the debate. He's up about 3 to +3 right nationally. But we asked, how would you rate the job Kamala Harris has done in terms of outlining her specific policy ideas?
There it is.
Becoming the Democrat presidential nominee.
What is the results of that? Do I have that? Did you send that? I guess you guys probably did send that to me. But go ahead. Yeah, tell that's going to be a big deal because this is what we're hearing. But what did you get for that? Oop, did I lose you? Oh, you muted yourself, Mark. I'm trying to unmute you. There you go.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So it was 23%, 25% excellent, 22% good. Whatever. The same 47% to vote for her.
I was just going to say that's her vote number.
Yeah. But for independents, 54% say poor.
Yeah.
So if you're Kamala Harris and New York Times had you losing the national popular vote, why did you pick Tim Walz? Why are you talking about communist price controls? Why are you copying Joe Biden's economic policies? Why are you flip-flopping? The Democrats might not care. Anything you say, they're going to support you, but you have to win independents. And she's not, in our numbers, not anywhere close to winning independents. And, they don't like the fact she's not interviewing either. 80%, 82% of independents say it's important that Harris gives interviews to the news media. So it's she's got this shoddy, transparent, weak, I didn't do my homework last night, I'm rushing to get it in kind of campaign that I think independents can see has absolutely no substance. And
yeah. Oh, God. Finish what
you're saying. Where's she going to get it back? According to my numbers, she's losing the national popular vote. There's no hope for her. And where is she going to turn it around? She needs media narrative cover to turn it around. And I keep on the list of possible black swans, it keeps getting smaller and smaller. It's like, okay, the economy's probably not going to collapse, but maybe we'll get a rate cut. Maybe that'll move the needle a little bit. Maybe the Republicans will screw up the listen, the Republicans have a chance to lose this for Trump by screwing up
Absolutely
the shutdown. And then there's always the one, you've probably talked about this too, and people think it might not happen. But the one get out of jail free card that Democrats have, and it's kind of cynical to say this, is extorting Biden into resigning.
Yeah.
And there's the other option too, but
that's the nuclear.
That's nature, right? But if they do that, there will be 3 weeks of the most sickening mainstream,
dear God,
retrospective on Biden's term that you've ever seen about how he gave his life to the government and he's passing the torch to the younger generation.
Protect democracy from
protecting democracy from democracy. And it'll be wall to wall up to election day, and she'll win. So
this is how you know that you and I are right. I'm going to play a short clip. This is how you know that you and I are right about how she missed an opportunity to speak. And I got to be honest, I didn't see it at first myself until I just listened to voters. And clearly when you asked that question, you got to the heart of it too with that question that you asked, because there were voters in our undecided pool who flatly told us that they really don't want to vote for Trump. They needed Kamala to tell them why she was different from Biden and how things would be better. Because even those who don't want to vote for him, most of them admit that Trump's presidency was successful as far as like the economy and things were better. This is the problem she faces. And this is how you know that we're right about all of this. Here is the man himself who played a key role in being the media stooge for Kamala Harris to knife Biden in the back and get rid of Joe Biden. And that is the one, the only, I share email suggestions and debate questions, Jake Tapper. All right. And here, listen to what he did in reaction to the debate.
Vice President Harris began the debate by punting the first question on the economy.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
It went on from there. Despite the economy being the number one issue facing the country, the sitting vice president generally reverted to talking points about a few of her policy proposals. Even Harris allies today are saying that she needs to talk more about what she will do for Americans if elected. Senator Bernie Sanders will be here in a second to talk about more about the need for her to fill in some of those blanks.
He keeps going on. He'll bring up immigration. He'll bring up inflation. Bernie Sanders comes on and fillets her by saying, I think she did a good job performance-wise, but she didn't do anything to lay the fears of Americans that she would be just as bad as Biden. And also, I think she needed to tell the country she was not aware of Joe Biden's state of mind, which would have been a lie. So she couldn't do that. This is the man who was the tip of the spear, Mark, when it came to getting Biden out of there. All right. So in front of the scenes, folks, it's Jake Tapper 1 hour after the other on CNN saying Biden is senile and needs to go for the good of the country, for the good of the party, for the good of everybody and all the small children everywhere. Right. And then behind the scenes, you have Chicago doing what Chicago does to get rid of him. Yeah. Without Jake Tapper, the momentum would not have built. He played the role of stooge. And by the way, I'm not making stuff up. You can go to peoplespunditdaily.com, search for Jake Tapper. It's going to come right up. Or you can go to WikiLeaks and you can look it up yourself. This is a man who routinely conversed with the DNC to ask them, what do you want me to ask Donald Trump during this debate, in this interview? What do you want me to ask Ted Cruz? I mean, this is what these people do. And so when he's talking to the same people that Mark Halpern's talking to, and they're saying this was not a performance, she didn't do what she needed to do. And this performance is not going to result in some meaningful change in the race. That is what they are both saying. So that's how it kind of affirms, I guess, or it backs up, it jives with what we're hearing from voters. So they're hearing the same thing.
Well, there's the issue of trust too. And I have some numbers of independents. First, let me say this about CNN. The beautiful thing about integrity, just like religion, is that you can lose it immediately, but you can gain it back at any time. And there are things I've seen out of CNN that leads me to believe that at least some people in that organization are trying to get integrity back. Definitely not all of them. And I definitely don't want to give CNN too much credit here. But what I do want to say is that after the ABC moderator performance, CNN, anybody at CNN, if you're watching this, there is a massive opportunity that will enrich you and fix your company if you have the next debate and play it straight. That's all you have to do. Fire a few people, maybe Caitlin, what's her name? Fire a few people and play it straight. Yeah, there are ideologues there for sure. But the thing about independence, and I don't know all of the Ouija boards that people in the public opinion industry use, and I don't think that 10 to 12 person independent panels are all that great. But this the thing where they turn the dial, whatever, what's that called?
We have the dials on, but it's online. No one's actually holding a dial. We can play a video for them too, and they can with their mouse roll the gauge higher or lower. I can't. I don't have it in front of me. I could probably pop it up. Alchemer has it.
Maybe I'll retweet the clip after this if anybody wants. But again, I don't know. You're relying on a vendor or a mainstream news media organization to source those people. But the point that I thought was interesting is that every time Donald Trump talked, the yellow and red lines went up. Yellow for independence. Every time Kamala Harris talked, they went down. Now, I will say they went down equally, red and yellow. Republicans and independents both hate everything Kamala Harris said. But what's fascinating is they started dropping the second she talked. They were, you know what I mean? Like,
you know why that is.
What she said.
You know why that is, though, Mark, because we communicate with more than just our words.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised she hasn't been coached on the nasal aspect of the voice. Whoever did the faces, she spent a day on face prep, and she spent a whole day on face prep. They probably paid somebody $50,000 to come in and consult. Yeah. And I have yet to see, but I think a supercut of somebody. Maybe we could put it together ourselves. A supercut on YouTube of each face with a clever name for each one, I think would be absolutely hilarious.
That is a pretty good idea. I may do that. That sounds so good because there are already memes out there which tell you that what we're saying, what we picked up on is absolutely spot on. Did you see the Harris meme where her eyes are bugging out of her head and her up? Oh my God, it's just brutal for her. And by the way, I got to say, Team Trump, Republicans got their butts kicked on TikTok in 22, especially over abortion. Trump is slaying her on TikTok right now. I mean, just slaying her. It's not even
changed. And I bet you he's probably the only Republican there that's actually getting likes too.
I bet you you're right. They're just hopeless. They're hopeless, Mark. They're
a drag on his ticket.
They are a total drag on his ticket. 5 points behind him in our last poll. That's how bad. That's how much they were running behind him. 5 points.
Yep, I believe it. But the independents really want to vote Republican. I think. I don't think the Republican Party has given them much reason to. Yeah. But the numbers, they're voting Trump because, in my opinion, they're afraid of and fear and don't like. So this was pre-debate, but in general, have Biden's policies been mostly successful or mostly failures? Independents said 31% successful, 57% failures. How much credit does Kamala Harris deserve for the success of Biden's policies?
Key question.
Only 19% of independents said a lot, but 28% said she deserves a lot of the blame for his failures.
Yeah.
And then what's the math there? 83% of independents said it's important for leaders to stay consistent in terms of policy.
Because she created this desire to know more about her, she created this desire, because I'm with you on those post media focus groups, and I'm with you on that. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, do you trust Frank Luntz to pick a panel? I don't. Okay, like, I mean, that's really, come on.
Frank's a smart guy. He knows to throw red meat to one way, you know, every once in a
Absolutely.
while, just to keep people watching. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wasn't expecting anything to pan out the way that they were saying, that they were portraying this to pan out. The headline in the New York Times was, DC pundits, agree Kamala Harris won the debate. Undecided voters, not so sure. And so I'm like, yeah, right. Let's take it with a grain of salt. So I was really surprised to see this. I mean, basically though, I do want to, I want to play this clip, and because I want you to get your take on like where you think the state of this race is. Like, really, we're going to see suppressions. I'm sorry. I hate to speak about other people like this, but there really is no, I would be doing the people watching and listening a disservice by not saying that is clearly what some people are doing.
We saw Reuters and Ipsos and Morning Consult today. So yeah.
It's unbelievable. Give me a break. And, just give me a break. And nobody is seeing this. If you talk to both campaigns, and I'll get the memo with Fabrizio and put it up. But, basically Trump in the battleground states widened his advantage. It was basically a tie. And then now it's like Trump +3. Nobody on the Democratic side is going to seriously tell you on TV with a straight face that they have seen Kamala's polling and that Kamala is winning. They're not going to tell you that because it's not true. And here we have Mark Halperin. I just want to play the last of this for you because I want you to hear what he had to say. And I want to get your reaction to, I mean, it's like he's like really trying to toe this line, but trying to tell people what the deal is. Oops, sorry, almost messed that up.
But if you're someone who thinks along the lines of George Conway or Stuart Stevens, that we're always just one covfefe away from the end of Donald Trump, that he's doomed because he attacked the Pope or he shot someone on Fifth Avenue, I'm here to tell you the most important thing is I didn't talk to a single person today, including any Democratic strategist, who believe that the debate is going to cause Kamala Harris to take a meaningful lead in the polls on a sustained basis, or perhaps at all. So I'm here to try to consider two theories that are just dogma in the media and amongst Democrats. One is that independent swing voters, the undecided voters in the 7 states who will decide the election, reacted to the debate and how the two candidates did in the same way that MSNBC hosts reacted to it. That's one theory. The other theory is that Donald Trump today saying he was not due another debate with Kamala Harris reflects the fact that he knows he lost and he's afraid of doing another one.
Let me just stop it there. Those are the two theories of what, you're going to hear about. It is dogma, right? That's what you're going to hear. But everyone knows the conventional wisdom surrounding debates is as follows. If you are losing, you want another debate. Yeah. Because you don't have anything to lose at that point. You need something, a moment, something. Her immediately saying she wants another debate is not some kind of like confirmation of their confidence and that it did so much for them the first time, so they're just dying to do it again. That is a load of crap. It means they know that she missed an opportunity with several very important things, that she is not ahead, and that she wants to do it again. She wants a do-over. Only losers want a debate, folks. That's the saying. That's how it goes. Trump saying, no, I'm done, is a sign that he knows that he doesn't have any more to accomplish, and that if he just keeps on the same trajectory, that it's gonna end up well for him. I mean, would you? I guess my question is, first of all, I mean, this is what goes. Those two theories that he just brought up, which he'll go on to try to refute. That is what they're saying and trying to push. Do you see any evidence for that whatsoever? I mean, I think
there's so much consensus forming, and there's so many people that think different ways and try and do it for different reasons. I don't know if Trump had some data he was going to look at before and after and then made some call. Like maybe Fabrizio did some snap stuff for him. I don't know. My gut is that Trump just needed to get in the ring. He felt like he needed to show that she was not better than Biden. And he did it, but he's not trying. There's no upside for him. He's not trying to win anything. He's got 49% of the electorate. And it's people at this point who are most likely going to crawl over broken glass to vote for him in a way that they were not for McCain and Romney, right?
Yeah.
So she is losing. Like, and you're right. There's not a lot of polls out that show she's losing, but that's because the pollsters are hiding. And what the pollsters need right now is narrative cover, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the consensus forming is like
bad, but you're so right. That's what's going on right now.
Oh, it's literally ABC's pollster and ABC. It's literally maybe via email, maybe over like I don't know, right? But they're like, listen, like the numbers aren't there. Like, picture Scotty in the engine room of the Enterprise, the pollster trying to get Harris, trying to get that lead. And it's not just like they want to get her to 3 points where Clinton was. They're the leftward leaning ones. They need to get her to 6 or 7 to get the aggregate to where Clinton was.
Right.
And this is cynical as hell, but it's true. I think it's true because that's the only thing, in my opinion, that explains everything that's going on. And like the media is like, they're like, give me something. And the journalists are like, well, she won. She's the best person ever. There's so much gravitas and intellectual depth, and she ran rings around Trump, and everybody knows they're lying, and then it's not true. Yeah. They burned their credibility, and it doesn't work anymore. They can't do this back and forth in the way that they did in 2020 because Biden got, in my opinion, elected because of his experience. And you can look at his track record and say, oh, it's probably not there, but it's like, well, they got the narrative cover to give him plus 12 polls, right? And he only got plus 4.
Right.
That's what's happening, I think. And it's like maybe it won't work and they'll get a rate cut. Maybe I don't know. Like they need something because I think what we're going to see is just like, listen, Trump lasered in on plus 5 over Biden, and call us a right-wing pollster. Maybe say we're 2 points too right, whatever. Plus 3, call it plus 3. Which means that in our polling, it would have gotten down to like Harris plus 1 or 2. It's back up to tie or Trump plus 1 at the worst case, right? And it's just gonna that's it. They're gonna run their ads in the swing states. So's Trump. There's unless there's another assassination attempt, knock on wood. What's gonna move the needle? Okay, maybe a black swan. Maybe China will invade Taiwan, or Putin will finally relent.
I expect a huge bomb next month because these people have shown themselves to be. I mean, I'm trying to be, fair here, but I mean, past this prologue, man, and these people couldn't care less. I mean, he even had to say that was a good moment for him during the debate. Where like, look, I almost got killed because of people like you last month. That was a good moment. But I don't think that they're done yet. They postpone this this sentencing hearing again. We'll just have to see. But I really do think that there's going to be something huge. The American public's going to be subjected to yet another insane story that is like a once in a lifetime thing you're getting hit with. I hope not. I really do. But because I was just hoping to have a stable race to poll. Where for once it's not. It would just be nice if for one cycle, Mark, just one, they would just knock off the shit. The nonsense. Yeah, I mean, it's never going to happen apparently with these people. They just, but yeah, man, it's 1:30. I kept you forever. Why don't you tell people where to find you on Twitter and everything? And I know you do videos too, which are really cool. You should tell people about them. And I hope you come back on soon.
First, can we agree that the cat memes are absolutely hilarious?
Listen, my daughter's like, hey, Dad, check it, because she's a dancer, a competitive dancer. Every time there's a new dance meme, if her and her friends are over it, her dance friends are over it, she's like, we're doing Eat the Cat. I'm like, oh my God. Even they're doing Eat the Cat. It already is stuck already. Yeah. It's not that it's going to stick. It's stuck already.
The NPC meme was so powerful that the government forced Twitter to shut it down, and they would do it again with the cats. but they can't.
Yeah.
That's how crazy our elections have gone. So anyway, I guess all that is, my point is you should follow a pollster who appreciates hilarious memes, because all you need to appreciate memes is to be an objective, open, rational thinker, right?
Yeah.
Right and left could enjoy these memes together, but because they can't, there's no unity. So follow me on Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. Also our Rasmussen main account, Rasmussen_poll. It's, a lot of it's just links to our stories and stuff, but we also, put good content on there. And we're also the only biggest account, let's just say, on Twitter following official investigations and resultant findings out of actual research into election fraud. So I think that's important. As you know, election fraud is important. YouTube Rasmussen_poll. We haven't done like live streams and interview style content yet. It's usually like bite-sized 10 and 15 minute looks at cross tabs. So,
which is what a lot of people, what a lot of people, I would say, would more appreciate more. Like sometimes I get accused.
You have a good audience of nerdy masochists. I love it. Mine are more for the people that can only stomach like 10 minutes of numbers.
I guess man, we shouldn't wait next time to have you on again, but this was like perfect time to do so. I appreciate you giving us so much time, and tell everybody over there I said hello, and we'll see you again real soon.
Thanks so much. I had a blast.
Anytime, brother. Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Good stuff. All right. I'm going to play the rest of the Halpern thing. Then we'll go over a read real quick when we get back. And then it is 11:30. I will try to scan through your comments ASAP. Couple little things. I will be on Steve Gruber in like very, very soon after the show. And I may or may not be on One America. It may be kind of too late for Laura to work it out, but we'll see. Things kind of crazy, but that's the way they are during the election season. Interestingly enough, you may follow them on Twitter. Looks like they're polling North Carolina, Qantas polls over here. Something interesting to keep in mind about the North Carolina poll, I polled on September 11th. And by the end of the day, the raw data was leaning Democrat Harris. Raw equals unweighted. That is a word we coined a lot, colloquial anyway. By midday on September 12th, the data became more Republican, Trump. And by the evening, the raw sample became leans Republican. Could be a coincidence, could be the post-debate factor. Like I said, I want to poll it again in a few weeks. I think it's important to note, and this is why I really do wish that we had a track, and that's why I love talking to Mark about the tracking, what he's seeing, because one of the key dynamics in this race since the old switcheroo is that Trump would be leading Biden in the initial ask, and then when you leaned voters, Biden would win the leans. He would win the undecideds. But he wouldn't win them enough where he could catch up. But still, nevertheless, he would close the gap, still being down. Harris, once she entered this race, it became like a different, where the race got tighter and Trump won the undecideds. And this is a question I forgot to ask him: what does undecideds look like? Because ours and with other people I've spoken with, the undecideds used to be more female when Biden was still in the race, and now that is not the case. Men are they're a large majority of our undecideds. The whole undecided sample that we had from this last poll was 45% conservative, higher than the national average. So they were kind of like voter-rich targets for Trump. But pre-debate, there were people who would lean to Harris, who we have spoken with, that no longer say they can justify that lean, because they were leaning to her in the hope that she was going to go to the microphone. And of course, she was going to tell us, give us something that would at least give us a believable reason why things would be better under you than they are under Biden, and how that could compare with Donald Trump, who we know, even if we don't like him, he was generally successful and the economy was doing well. That didn't happen. So one of the more interesting points, and gathering from what he is saying, I wonder if some of those people after that debate are people who might have leaned to Harris before, but will not now. So goes to show you, I did say this, and I should have listened to my own advice more. Just because you think someone won a debate doesn't mean that's how you intend to vote. It doesn't mean you will vote for that person. So, and look, for instance, and at least I'm always going to be 100% honest with you. Pollsters pretend like they don't have their own views. That's horseshit. They do. And it's an insult to your intelligence to pretend like I don't. I do, very clearly. And I'll just say right now, like, I think Harris won on typical substance. I mean, typical debate style points. She lost on substance. And very clearly, that's the problem. All right. But just because I think she won in the traditional sense, the debate, does not mean I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. I'm talking about me personally. In fact, there's not even a snowball's chance in hell that I'll vote for Kamala Harris. I had a client that Kamala Harris tried to throw in prison for a very long time because he committed the crime of engaging in his First Amendment rights as a member of the press. So, that kind of stuff is pretty important to me, among other things. I share with the majority of the country the suspicion that Kamala is like her daddy, a radical Marxist. And it seems like Democrats fake it every year. And then every year after they fake it, we get to see a little bit more of what their true self is. And I don't like it. Joe Biden used to be a moderate. Not even he governed as a moderate. And it's tragic. And that's probably why Trump is winning that question right now. Do you think Donald Trump is too far to the right? No. Do you think he's right in the middle? Yes. What about Kamala Harris? Too far to the left. All right. So in any event, lot to give you process there. All right. Let's play this clip. When we come back, we'll have more word from our sponsors. Yes, I am exhausted, but that's life. Keep ticking.
Okay. Those theories may be right. I'm not saying they're wrong. But what I am saying is, based on my conversations today, I think they might be wrong. And that would be wise to consider that they might be wrong, particularly if you're someone who doesn't want Donald Trump to win and made the mistake in 2016 and nearly in 2020 of assuming that Donald Trump didn't have any idea what he was doing and that he was going down to defeat because he's only supported by his core MAGA base. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. I'm not saying the people who hold the theories that are dominant in the media now are wrong. I'll say again, what I'm saying is they might be wrong. And what I'm saying is, based on what I've heard today, I think there's a way to build that up. All right. So let's talk about that.
Okay. So while we're at it, I was going to take a little bit more of a break here, but this is pretty important. Let me just jump in and tell you. I guess it was Glenn Gariff and Epic MRA that had Trump up in Michigan. Mitchell had her up apparently. But in the aftermath of the debate, even though 56% say Harris won and 29% say Trump won, 15% said neither won, Trump actually gained because of the debate. You listen to this. Did this debate actually make you switch from one candidate to another? Definitely switch from Trump to Harris is only 3 points. Definitely switch from Trump to Harris, 0. Probably, 0. But with Trump, definitely is 4 from Harris to Trump. They actually left some of those leaners I was telling you about, and then probably is another 1. So altogether, he edges her out by a net 2, which makes the race dead even at 48 now. So again, sometimes, like I said, especially with Trump, Mark just said, all these people, they're constantly thinking of that the Trump is one covfefe away. And it's like, I know better than that. They've been around too. They were around, with the Gold Star family, with the Khans, right? With the McCain, I like my war heroes who don't rat or something like that, or don't get caught in rat. All of these things that they said was going to be the end of Donald Trump. Frank Luntz included, by the way. In case I'm not clear enough, Hillary Clinton will be the next president. Remember that? And that was after he read the exit polls. Sometimes we just don't know. We just don't know because maybe we didn't spend enough time talking to those people. Now, hindsight, I think I kind of did, didn't I? I mean, when we asked those people, who do you trust more on these issues and what are your most important issues that are to your vote? And the Trump win is right there. It's all right there. His lead on the economy after a brief response bias period is starting to widen again. Inflation, ditto. I think his lead is probably going to widen further on these issues now that they looked at Harris and they said she didn't give me anything. Anything. Again, Mitchell Research was Clinton +6, I believe. And I believe like Biden +8 or 9. So the fact that we're even have it tied at 48 race here is just huge. It's huge. All right, let's take a real quick break. 30 seconds. We'll be back. And don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them, share them far and wide. All right. And of course, the links to the Public Polling Project are in the description. Go check it out. We'll be back in 30 seconds. What a waste of a break. I couldn't find my water. All right, what are you going to do? All right, look, folks, with everything that's going on now, maybe we get a rate cut, maybe we don't. But it's no wonder with everything that's happening in the world and in the economy that people are looking for safer places to protect their investments. All right, that's why I want to talk to you about Freedom Gold USA. If you have not seen it yet, all right, we will be bringing them back next month to tell us who won. And by win, I mean the deal that they're offering our viewers and listeners of the show, which is, of course, multiple fold. All right. So with all of these houses, if you want to get started in investing in gold or silver or any precious metals and currencies, then of course they're going to want a commitment from you. And a lot of these houses are $50,000 minimums, $20,000 minimums, $10,000 minimums. Even Freedom Gold is usually $5,000. However, if you are a member of this show, they will reduce that to $500 instead. And you will still get free shipping and insurance on every order. And the coolest part about it is that you will be thrown into a pool and someone's going to win some free gold and silver, gold or silver, I believe. It's silver. Thank you for the clarification, which is really cool. We had 2 winners last month and congratulations to you guys. All right. And I'm happy to even be a part of that. It's awesome. And we'll get them back and there'll be more in the next month. And then we'll have him, of course, come on and talk about inflation and what he thinks the Fed's going to do. It's a very interesting segment. It was great last segment. Really was. But again, you may want to just go and check out what else they have to offer. The great thing about Freedom Gold is that they are not, the pushy hard sell. There will none of that. Really, they care of that you have enough information to make a confident decision so you can feel confident in your investment decisions. All right. So they'll give you a ton of information to make sure you can do that. Go check out freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. That will tell you, maybe, go check it out. You may qualify for other orders. By the way, $500 credit for a new gold and silver or silver IRA, which is just dope. Let's be real. Or you could call them on the phone, 888-279-3592, 888-279-3592. That is the number for us, like the website is for us, but it couldn't hurt to tell them that the People's Pundit sent you. All right. Listen, there is one more thing I really wanted to talk about here. It's a story. Oh, there's 2. Damn. Oh, it's 1:42. We had questions to go over. I really wanted to read something from the Liberal Patriot. Am I going to have enough time? I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that. I got to do it. I got to do it, guys. I got to do it. I'll try to do it very quickly, okay? And I do see the questions, but I just think that it's important, like I've been telling you, that it's important for everybody to understand what people really say behind closed doors and what they view to be the smart people on the Democratic side, what they're thinking and what they're saying, because it doesn't at all jive with what you're hearing in the garbage media. And I think Mark is right. Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen, we just had on. we're in a consensus period. They do this, the media. They'll push this consensus narrative, try to drive a response bias if they can, and then they will poll and exploit it. And that is, we're at the tail end of that, I believe. But oh, wrong one. Here we go. All right, this is a big deal. This is Rui Teixeira, who is, of course, one of the co-authors of the Bible for Democrats, which is the emerging Democratic majority. All right, Rui Teixeira wrote this with John Judas, and I'm going to read this now. Harris's working class problem. The Democratic Achilles heel remains. Democrats are enjoying the afterglow of a successful debate by their candidate against Trump. Harris's game plan of goading Trump into irrelevant and defensive tangents worked as intended. She was the, quote, winner, unquote, of the debate to the extent these designations still have any meaning. And if you haven't read Sean Trendy's analysis of the debate, you got the hiccups. You should. And what he basically says is, nah, she failed because she didn't tell anything new about herself. And again, allay any of the fears. And this is what we are, in fact, hearing from undecided voters. So the fact that you played to your audience doesn't do shit. Doesn't do shit. You needed to tell the people who didn't want to vote for Trump why you would be better than Joe Biden. It's really too late now. You get one chance to make a first impression, folks. And that body language coupled with the lack of substance it's too late. Too late. And that's why they want another debate. But the race is still exceedingly tight and seems likely to remain so. And there's another part of her game plan, or what should be her game plan, that does not appear to be working out so well. I refer to the need to boost support among the working class, which remains a serious weak spot for the Democrats and Harris. The latest New York Times Siena poll has Harris trailing Trump among working class non-college voters by 17 points. You ready? Get this. This is identical to Biden's working class deficit in the last New York Times poll before he dropped out of the race, and way worse than Biden's deficit among these voters in 2020, a mere 4 points. In other words, an election he won by essentially 40,000 votes across, a handful of states. She cannot afford that in the Electoral College. It's like, let's come back to reality. More detailed New York Times results reveal that Harris, relative to Biden in 2020, is doing 10 points worse among white working class voters and 18 points worse among non-white working class voters. The latter is despite considerable improvement for Harris among this demographic since Biden dropped out. There's no sugarcoating it. This is a serious problem for the Democrats. College-educated America may be delighted with candidate Harris, but working class America clearly is not. And there are a lot more working class than college-educated Americans. Period. Full stop. And guess what? They're overrepresented in the Electoral College. Remember that they will be the overwhelming majority of eligible voters, around 2/3, and even allowing for turnout patterns, only slightly less dominant among actual voters, around 3/5. Moreover, and by the way, this is why if you just get out and vote, understand what I'm telling you is true. All right. If Trump gets these voters out that we've been talking about for a better part of a year now, you can go on and on about the illegal immigrants getting on the voter rolls, which is so tiny and minute compared to the real electorate that you should be concerning yourself with, right? All of that would not matter at all. There are so many of these people, they cannot hold back the tide. They can't. The math isn't there. The only way that they can is if these people don't vote and they decide to vote for them, because that's what they do. Moreover, in all 7 key swing states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, the working class share of the electorate, both as eligible voters and projected 2024 voters, will be higher than the national average. Again, what he's saying right there is what I just said in an easier way. They are overrepresented in the Electoral College. The New York Times data demonstrates how far apart the viewpoints are of working class, college-educated America today. Consider the following gaps. We don't really need to go over it. I mean, that is what I wanted to share with you. It's absolutely tremendous. I cannot. And here's the kicker. Trump actually, both elections, 16 and 20, did better with college-educated whites than polls suggested that he would. He did better with seniors than polls suggested he would. He did better with whites overall than polls suggested he would. And he did better with suburban white women than polls suggested he would. Both times. Now, past is not always prologue. That is not a guarantee that Trump's going to outperform the polls. But it's a pretty bad friggin' sign if you're Kamala Harris. All right, so you can take your Harris +5s and, you know, it is what it is. And I didn't even see that from Mark. My God, I missed that before. And that's why when Laura's not there to like watch my every move, I absolutely can screw it up. Yeah, I would actually disagree. Like, that's exactly Chanel Porter said the Atlanta suburbs, what's going to screw Trump in Georgia. But that's what Rui is actually talking about. They're not all educated voters in the Atlanta suburbs. And she's doing worse than Biden did. So that's a state that is huge for non-college. And of course, black voters tend to be a little bit more conservative in the South, but also Trump does better with black voters in the Midwest than he does usually everywhere else. But it doesn't matter because he gets those numbers. She's not carrying Georgia. It's not happening. Alan Lichtman may be wrong this time. I feel it, don't you? Alan Lichtman was wrong before. He keeps saying, I've accurately predicted every election since 1980, whatever. Like, no, you didn't, bro. Al Gore lost. Cut the shit. Al Gore lost. And Alan Lichtman has lost his mind in the Trump era, just like everybody else has. Larry Sabato and his tiny crystal balls used to run around claiming the same thing. Every time he got, introduced on Fox News, it was always, he's been right every year since blah, blah, blah. But they lost their minds in the Trump era. They lost all objectivity. This is a man who spent a month on TV saying, if you remove Biden, you remove the best variable in my model, incumbency. If Kamala Harris replaces Biden, they're doomed. They're throwing away an election. She engages in the coup, usurps him, and she is a usurper. He's on TV on CNBC the next day saying, you know what? My model shows Harris is the strong favorite here. The guy's full of shit. Even Harry Enton tweeted, I think we need to rethink the viability and the validity or credibility of Alan Lichtman's model. And by the way, I've brought that up to him before in an academic setting. And he said, I remember this. I wonder if you remember this, Alan. He said, well, it wasn't really my fault because Al Gore lost the popular vote. Won the popular vote. And to which I replied, but then isn't your model shit? Because the popular vote has nothing to do with the winner of the Electoral College. Well, not nothing. But it certainly isn't what your model should be built off of. Your model should take into account the range of popular vote outcomes that determine the probability that one candidate or the other will win in the Electoral College. But he doesn't really have variables. He's plugging in some model, folks, and running simulations. He's not doing that. He's being subjective. Do you think there wasn't a foreign policy blunder in the Biden administration? You wouldn't call Afghanistan and that withdrawal a foreign policy blunder or scandal even. You wouldn't call the botching of the Russo-Ukrainian war, which we're losing, by the way. We've lost. It's over. Unfortunately, they haven't thrown up the white flag yet, so there's still a bunch of people dying for no reason to prevent to futilely prevent the inevitable outcome. God, Israel. The collapse of the Abraham Accords, right? There's and to him, none of that it rises to the level of a foreign policy failure or turmoil overseas, abroad, right? Come on, give me a break. Guy's not running a model. He's running a friggin' opinion thing. He's running an opinion website with a map. Yeah, Nordstrom. Oh my God. Thank you. Absolutely. This is a good question. This is a really good question. All right, let's talk about that for a little bit. All right, because I really wish I would have kept these in the entire time, but because I didn't, I can't claim to know something that I may not know. Okay, hold on. Whoops, I just screwed it up. Come on. And let me pop it on the screen. All right, here's the poll. And the question is, are you seeing any possibility of the Bradley effect? All right. All right, let's start from the beginning. This is some of the social bias indicators, which we then cross with people who say they're undecided. And we cross with everything, but obviously we're very interested in those who say they're undecided. As you can see here, family, the social bias flags are not that bad. When we get to friends, they start to get a little bit worse, but still not awful. Neighbors, growing now to 30.7%. And what does this mean? How comfortable or uncomfortable are you telling each group of people about your political beliefs, such as how you intend to vote? All right. Coworkers, starting to get a little bit further up there to a third. Strangers, well, of course, nearly half. In fact, pollsters. Look at that. About a third. So, I mean, I feel like I can't tell you that for sure because we didn't have these in here before. We'd stopped using them because during the Biden administration, the social bias flags all but disappeared. Yeah. Also, too, the shy Trump voter belief is now back much, much higher than it was. And that's simply, do you believe there is a significant number of shy voters who do not want to share that they are voting for Donald Trump? 62% yes. 18% no. 1 in 5 say that they're unsure. By the way, interestingly, when you cross these with those who say that they are uncomfortable, you will find some pretty good crossover there. So, very good question. I do think that there are some voters, and I'm not talking about because it's about their race. These voters voted for Barack Obama. It has nothing to do with her race or whatever race she is today. It has nothing to do with that. I think that they're being told she's just super awesome. And what's wrong with you if you don't vote for her? And they think she's like too far to the left. And then some may use that excuse for that as well. But I really don't think that the key thing here is fueling it is race. I don't. David Muir is in fact an absolute embarrassment. He should resign. He should be gone by now. But here's the disgusting thing, Crew Kid, about today's media. Do you know when David Muir is going to be forced to resign? If and when Donald Trump wins this election, that's when he's going to be forced to resign. Because they're going to blame him. They're going to blame him. And they're going to say, damn it, David. If you handled this better, those undecideds wouldn't have broke the Trump 2-1. Now, I'm not saying that's true. However, instead of using his time to do a 3v1, he could have helped her lead, into a better answer after she went on what Jake Tapper himself called, rambling and avoidance. If they cannot fudge the numbers to put Kamala ahead after this debate, how bad are the internals? Just how horrific is she actually doing? Listen, I think it's fair to say Michigan is a bobbing back and forth between a 1-point race in both of these campaigns polls. And she's down in Pennsylvania in both of their polls. I know that to be true. And so does Mark Halpern, apparently, who sounds like he has seen it himself. She's down in Pennsylvania. It's not huge, but she has consistently trailed him between 1 and 2 points for a while. So when you see that, it's like, And actually, no, it wasn't 1 or 2. In the initial round that they did after the switcheroo, it was more. It was like 4, I think. You think there's any possibility that pollsters could collude near the election and release overly favorable Trump numbers to make ours overconfident? I just think that they're going to vote for him no matter what. Ours. They're going to vote for him no matter what. And some like Mark said, will crawl over broken glass to do it. But I think that what's kind of more important at this moment is that yeah, I mean, I don't know about Trump plus twos, but I think that it's again really likely that I don't think the industry can take another bad miss, but I just don't put anything past them anymore. I guess I really don't. These people are going to come out and vote, so they may decide at the end. We better reflect that, or we're going to have a problem. And we're going to look. I'm going to do obviously my best, like I do every year. But if the New York Times does what they did in 2020 again, they're freaking cooked. They're cooked. No one will care at all what they say ever again. Nate Cohen's poll will just be a joke, an absolute joke. 538 treated Mark very unfairly, unacceptable stuff. I can't wait to see if my averages are more accurate this year. Oh my God, this is On Point Politics. Yo, man, I'm watching your Twitter feed. I've been, somebody said, hey, you've been watching On Point Politics? So I checked it out. I'm really, guys, if you're not checking out On Point Politics, go give them a follow. Really, really interesting stuff. Look, I suspect that if you don't engage in some, unskew the polls trick, I mean, this like scam that is a house bias that, again, they somehow calculate with this super secret formula that nobody can know about. And again, we don't have a 7.8 point Republican bias. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. It may be that we have that much of a bias when it comes to the consensus of polling in the past couple presidential elections, but that doesn't actually mean we have a Republican bias. That just means that we have a more accurate track record. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Why? Because we didn't have Biden up by 17 points in Wisconsin? Give me a break. We didn't even have him up by 10, which would have given us a Republican, bias of 7 points compared to some of the others out there. But let's say the average was ballpark, Biden plus 9. Then I guess we did have a 7-point bias because we were only Biden plus 2. Who was more correct? Right. Definitely go check out on Point Politics, folks, on Twitter. Emperor Soft Turtle. Can I drop a theory? Well, sure you can. First impressions are important, and Harris tripped up the first question about the economy, which was the most important issue. That Emperor and in between, and I'm telling you, go back and rewatch the debate, and you'll see that Trump is actually, I think he's more than holding his own in the first 15 minutes or so. I think he's winning the debate in the first 15 minutes. And then after the abortion thing, they full 3v1 him. They go off the rails, and Kamala does succeed in baiting him into some of the more, I don't want to use that word, but unnecessary rebuttals by Trump. Like that just made him look like they were just your textbook Trump going off on things that people don't like when he goes and says, crowd side debating. Oh, my crowds were bigger than your crowds. Get out of here. That's fake news. Like, come on, those people don't care about that. They want to hear you say my presidency was a success. You guys all know it. She's been a failure. Biden's been senile for 4 years. She's obviously been running the show, and it's been a disaster. That's what I would have said. And she cast that tie-breaking vote. She is literally the reason you are paying more at the grocery store right now. We could not afford to pay back her donors in the Green New scam, which was labeled the Inflation Reduction Act creatively. Why would Frank Luntz? Because he's an idiot. End of story. Move on to the next question. I'm sorry, first grade party. Why would Frank Luntz say Kamala's going to win yesterday? Is this polling that poor? Lippman has zero data. How have his predictions ever been correct? Yeah, Frank, look, Frank is doing what he always does. Show for big pharma, show for big media. Yeah, there's a few people I always try to tell you guys and others not to pump up. Doesn't even matter if they tweet something that you like, because there you had a perfect example of Frank goading people, trying to bring up something that was important, the facial expressions and the lack of substance in her arguments. He was hearing from them that very same thing. And then somehow he just, twisted it up, bait and switch people, and is now all over TV saying that Harris is going to win. He couldn't predict an election, period, let alone an election this far out still. So he's not the best person, to ask. How big do you think polls are understating Trump's voters, especially in the battleground states? Look, I mean, if you count both elections, you're looking at ballpark 3 points, a little under. And that's not the battleground states. It's national polling. That's an average. I think that, that we've seen some real doozies in the past. So if we did do that and apply it to, future potential scenarios, then it would be a lot. But, I'm a big believer in polling what we poll and operating from there. Republicans should be running like they are 10 points behind, even if they aren't. Any numbers on generic poll updates down ballot? Yeah. We just released one late last week. Yeah, they're running 5 points behind Donald Trump. By they, I mean congressional Republicans. The House vote, that generic ballot, whatever you want to call it, they are running significantly behind Donald Trump, and this is going to be a problem. And they haven't fixed it. It's been months and months and months. And I can tell you from talking with certain people, like in California, for instance, that they just don't get it through their heads. They're going to attempt to. They're going to. Well, I guess they're going to. They're not going to make a push to do what they need to do to get more on par with Trump, which is why it's important, by the way. Like I just said, if you're a Republican, you want to run like you're 10 points down, because Republicans down ballot in Senate races and in the generic ballot, they are going to run behind the guys. So you want to push and get, his margin as big as you can in some of these areas. I think Mark is right. They're a drag on the ticket. And that's that, by the way. Yeah, I would say it's a pretty good assessment. Like, it wasn't a horrible debate performance for Trump, but he missed golden opportunities and he harped on BS as usual when he shouldn't have. But it's also not right for his team, meaning his pollster and his campaign manager, to run around to every news outlet that will listen and say that it's not your fault Trump didn't take any of the materials you gave him. Okay. I think that's almost it. Yes, we did add them. And how does it compare? We're now about to hit. We have state ones too. We don't have any state indicators yet, just nationals. So when I compare it to the national numbers, the combined very uncomfortable, somewhat uncomfortable is just a hair below where it was in 2020. So it's bad. It's getting bad. Very bad, unfortunately. Let me just see something. Okay. Wow. Got some novels here, huh, guys? Is it possible that Trump's stronger stance in the popular vote is due to gaining ground in places like New York, which won't impact the Electoral College? That's a very, very good question. I do think you will see some of that, but it's not going to be the case like 22, or at least not likely to, because in the polling that we had done during that period, he still did show some relative strength in some of these blue wall, big states, California being one of them. I just actually think that now there's some evidence that it's starting to revert at least back to not their 2020 advantage, but what they had before Trump decided, I think maybe I'll make a bigger push. That's a really good question. Meanwhile, he was outrunning all those other candidates that underperformed in key states like Adam Laxalt, for instance. So I don't think that's the case right now. But we'll see. We'll see. It's good. It's a great question. Also, you got to remember, we kind of picked this stuff up. So we do see that he's doing better in like urban mid-Atlantic areas, New York being one of them. We do see that he's doing better in some of the Pacific region states, especially certain areas of the state. However, that does not, well, I'll leave that for another day. I could go on and on about that. It just doesn't mean that it's going to be so much. It's going to erase the gains he makes elsewhere as well in the battlegrounds. You're very welcome, Aaron. You're very welcome. Will Trump winning Ohio by 10 be enough to finally unseat Marcy Kaptur in Ohio's 9th, is what you're talking about? It will be exceedingly difficult to stay in Congress if you are running during a cycle or in Ohio, where Donald Trump is doing better than most Republicans do. And of course, it's going to be a presidential cycle. She eked on by last time. Things are a little bit different. It's a good question. All right. It is a big deal that New York 4 voted for a Democrat for president for the last 8 elections, going all the way back to Bill Clinton in 92. But currently, the incumbent House Republican member, D'Esposito, is ahead, and Trump is tied with Harris in the general election from the latest McLaughlin poll. Yeah, and then it's linked there if you guys want to check it out. But without a doubt. And I've gotten a lot of questions, by the way, about these areas. And, I looked at your last poll. Is it the Jewish vote? Is it this? Is that? It's a combination of a lot of things. Oh, wow. Cool. Thanks for the great conversation at Rival Barnes. Oh, yeah. Barnes and Barris. That's awesome to hear. All right. Don't forget, guys, I'm going to go ahead and kill this down now. Don't forget that if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. What percentage of the electorate wants to vote for the winner? Like the person who buys the only jersey of the Super Bowl winner? There's a lot, actually. There's been a lot on this. That's actually like the topic of a segment, at least, of a show, because that's cool. I'm going to put that in my little, hold on one second. I'm literally going to copy your thing right now and put it in here. Of the electorate wants to vote for the winner. I mean, I have my theories, but let's go ahead and let me go through it a little bit. I'll find some stuff on that, see what what the data suggests is the case, and get back to it. I think that's a great question. I just don't have the answer 100% comfortable enough to give you a number, at least not right now. So give me a little bit of time. We'll work on that. All right, it's 2:11. If you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. And of course, the public polling project links are in the description, as is the advertisers that, of course, sponsor the show. All right. If you're on YouTube, it would be great. Take a minute. Mosey on over to Rumble. Like and subscribe there as well. Vice versa. But of course, the best place you could follow us is right below. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Troy Olson and Gavin Wax, the authors of The Emerging Populist Majority, will be coming by the book club this Sunday for local supporters, YouTube members, right? And we'll be coming to have a discussion about the book, answer questions, talk amongst each other, have a great discussion. There'll be some polls out by then too that are going to be worthy of talking about. So I can't wait for it. Absolutely can't. Plus, one of them's from Minnesota. We were just talking about New York. They wanted the other ones from New York. There's a new poll out in Minnesota today. Harris's lead is cut even further. So can't wait to get into it with, and that's of course Troy, and Gavin, of course, is from New York. All right. So that's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely sign up on Locals, become a supporter, and then you can join the book club. I'm telling you, it's a blast. We should all be in this book club, as should YouTube members, if I'm getting that correctly. If you subscribe on YouTube as a member instead of just as a subscriber, We'll also paste that information in the community section so you can join the book club as well. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to wrap this up, read the afterword, talk to the authors. I'm stoked. All right. Other than that, I think that's a wrap. I'll be on Steve Gruber in about an hour. Don't miss it. And I will see you guys real soon. Have a safe weekend. And thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. As always, nothing but love for you. And since Laura's not around, I'll have to do it for her. Deuces! She does it so much better, doesn't she? I'm out. Next week, we'll talk about Nevada voter registration, Pennsylvania voter registration, North Carolina voter registration. Numbers are in, along with some early voting, least absentee ballot requests. Not looking good for Democrats in Duval County. Not looking good for Democrats in North Carolina. Swifty Swift. What the hell you doing? Get on the ball. Isn't there something else you can do? By the way, who the hell would take electoral advice or life advice from Taylor Swift? Every song she ever written and wrote about and sang about has to deal with picking the wrong man. Taylor Swift ain't feeling the pain at the grocery store, folks. That's for damn sure. All right, I'm out.